Hello, this is my mini review of the Zoom H8. I don't know if they still call them handy recorders. I'll give you some background. And by the way, if you want someone who gets to the point, it's not me. I talk slowly and I don't care if you think I'm slow at getting to the point. Don't care about you. So my first Zoom looks like this. This goes way back and it's still useful. This is one of the original H2s, and yeah, it's held up pretty well. You could plug in an external mic and it will have a little plug-in power. They never called it phantom power then. I mean, it was called phantom power, but I don't think the menus called it that. But that just gives you an idea. This thing would had two mics in the front, two in the back, and it was sort of advertised for interviews before I think it might have, who knows, podcasting might have actually been a thing even when they were marketing this, but that would have been the idea, that you'd put this on the table and it could capture the two sides. So there's that. And then when the Panini started in 2020, I got the Zoom H4n Pro. That started my whole rabbit hole with multi-track recording, because this thing has a multi-track recorder on it, but it's not very useful. It's very, I mean, the way you get around this thing is through a jog wheel. So, but this is actually H4n Pro. I did enjoy it, and I've done some field recording with it. And what it does have on it that's really good for video is the 4-channel mode, which is it'll record from the top two mics and then also let you record down here, which is either mics. I mean, in this scenario, you could do line in. So if you do like electronic music, you could get the feed from your mixer. Let's say you do a modular synth or something, or beat machines, and you get your feed from your mixer, and then you still record from the top mics. That lets you sync it up later with video, and in a setup where everything was like running from line levels, and there was no mic to figure out when you started the recording. So that's one of the examples. The H4n Pro is really good, but I found it was, I've been doing the Elliot's podcast, and I do two different setups. I do one in this room, which is totally does not need a portable recorder, and then I do stuff in the bedroom, and that's where this idea came in for this Zoom. I play a lot of, forgetting podcasts or anything. I record a lot of. I work on the guitar a lot in there, and I write music in the bedroom. The acoustics are better, and I just wanted to try out something that would be useful for that situation, especially because I sometimes want like a mic here, and I want maybe a backing track from an iPad, like a drone or something. So I took a chance. I couldn't rent the Zoom H8, so I had to buy it, and I'm still in a phase where if I wanted to return it, I could, but I keep looking up different things, and I think I'll probably keep it. And I'll explain. So it has a touch screen. I don't love the touch screen, but it is semi-useful. It has 3 modes: podcast, music, and field recording. I probably never would use the podcast mode. That has a sound player on it, though. Like, for people who do these shows where they have like an intro sound and a sound button thing, that's very common in radio. So anyone who's like a journalist or running a podcast show, kind of like a tech podcaster, they might really take to that like feature of these buttons that you press. But so I wouldn't use that mode. The music mode, I'll tell you, I don't think it's very good. I mean, I haven't updated the firmware on it yet, but the music mode is like if I record a track from this top two mics and then I want to do an overdub, like let's say play rhythm guitar and I want to do a melody on the next track, I have to go into the menus and I have to unassign the track that was recorded and then assign it to a new track. And when you're recording music, you're losing ideas every second. So I don't like the music mode. I don't think I'd ever really use it. I think the mode to stick with on here is called field, and then you choose which channels you want to arm, and then you have the volume knobs to adjust those, and then these two inputs double up as quarter-inch line inputs, and they also have high Z if you're in Canada. So that means you can plug a guitar into this, and that's one of the things. Like you could plug electric guitar into it, and then it has something called Guitar Lab in here, which I wouldn't really use. And I think you see that on the Zoom R20. R20 has the Guitar Lab as well. It comes from Zoom's guitar pedals, and it lets you design little pedal board amp thing. Without me even trying it, I don't like to fiddle with that stuff. You just go down rabbit holes, but it is kind of useful because plugging an electric guitar into the Zoom H4n Pro does not really work because it doesn't take that type of signal from what I've tried. And then plugging an acoustic guitar that has an onboard preamp should work because I have a Fishman pickup on my acoustic with a preamp. It doesn't sound great in here. It sounded a little better on the Zoom H8, the Fishman output. But a Fishman acoustic guitars can sound really awful line out. They're kind of useful for having something in addition to the microphone capture. Okay, so why I might even still return it is I don't think it doesn't sound amazing, to be honest with you. I've tried it for the podcast on maybe one or two recordings. This microphone I've recorded into it. It doesn't need a cloud lifter, this is a Shure 58. I call that this is my budget SM7B for talk radio, and because it's the classic microphone that you'd find on a stage, a dynamic microphone. There's enough gain on here to get that up. It doesn't sound very good. Maybe I'll try it with my cloud lifter, which is what it's going into in the Focusrite right now. It didn't sound great. The onboard mics also don't sound. I don't like what's going on there. It's very for music. It's or at least for a guitar. The sound is hard to nail to get in. But what you can do is you can play around with the polar patterns, set one to 90 degrees and the other to 120, and then point it weird in different ways, and then you can find something that will work. But in general, you're better off using a condenser. I don't have it with me, but I have a little small diaphragm condenser microphone that I use for guitar, and I think that's better for this. You'll get a cleaner sound. And so the advantage of the H8 is that you have the oh, by the way, you have the dials. I was about to say something else, but the dials are convenient, and that's a feature I think the H6 and the H5 have. You do probably get zipper noise from using the dials during a recording. Zipper noise is because these are probably a lot of digital stuff happening, and so you feel like you're turning an analog knob, but in the operating system, it's a digital thing happening. So that would explain why it makes a little sound when you tweak the volume. So, so this is the big advantage, is that you're opening up more inputs. Only 2 1/4 inch though. And then you have a line in, which would knock out these microphones. It says line in slash mini microphone icon. I don't think that'll show up, and I highly doubt that. And that, I think, that might be meant for like a lavalier mic. I did not try plugging like music into that input, but I have a feeling that would work, and it's a stereo sound. So you don't get a lot of line inputs on here, but you do get more options with at least if you have 2 microphones, you have that option, and then you have these 2 to capture the room. So you'd get a pretty, and then so in the guitar example, maybe you would do pickup output into one of these, and then you would do condenser microphone into another input, and then point this up or something and get the room echo, the reverb, and that would be a good setup. And you just don't, on this, you would only, I mean, you see, that's the thing. This is why I could return this, is I could get away with a lot of, I could get away with stuff on the H4N in that scenario. But what I wouldn't be able to do is if I'm doing like a performance for video, for whatever podcast, I have 1 microphone, condenser, a pickup from the guitar, room microphone in 4-channel mode, and then I'm done. I have no other options for anything else. So that's so I think in general with so this kind of functions like a mixer, and I think in general you kind of want, if you do have a mixer, you want like 1 or 2, a bit extra space than what you need. It's kind of like buying a tent or a house. You want a bit more room. You don't want to go crazy. You don't want a 16-channel mixer if you're a singer or songwriter. You don't want a 24-channel mixer if you have only a few beat machines. So this opens up quite a few, just like enough channels, I think. And but I think it's there's a lot of downside and a lot of downsides, and I'll give you a few more of them. If you're recording like this with the microphones facing your instrument, your screen is now upside down, so that's one thing. The music mode app, as I said, you can't move. You can't just do quick overdubs into the same, have everything like set up and then just start overdubbing. There is punch in and punch out, I believe. But I mean, would you really bother with all that? I mean, this is not like, this is it operates in a really weird space of like song sketchpad in high quality, and also a video production, podcast, video, all that. But then when you dip into like session recording, so let's say I want to work on something in here, I could load it on here fairly easily onto the SD card and then set up a music session to play back this track that I'm working on. But you're going to be very frustrated with trying to produce music. And that's where the Porta Studios excel, is that, for example, I have the DP008 by Tascam, and that thing has more flexibility with working on a piece of music. So Zoom has given you a bit to work with, but not a whole lot in terms of music production. And it is people have mentioned online, it feels kind of cheap, which means it does. Then I don't have a problem with a cheap feeling thing, but like you definitely worry about dropping it for sure. There were some reviews about the battery life. It shipped with 4 really cheap batteries, so they should have put some nice batteries in there because now they had some reviews saying it has no battery life. I've put in some NIMH Amazon rechargeable batteries, and I'm testing out if this will last longer because it would be handy to have a portable recorder that actually can run on batteries. When I first got it, I ran it under the assumption that I can't really use batteries. In general, if you're doing a show of some sort, you want to plug this into wall power. I tried to connect this to my iPhone, and it didn't work. So I'll have to come back if I keep this and everything, and I really want to talk about that. What happened is I select connect to the iPhone iOS mode, and it just shut off or something. So I'll have to look at what's going on there. So I can't really comment on that. I typically won't want to use this as an audio interface. I trust my Focusrite a lot more because that's dedicated. That's the only thing that thing does is interface. So, yeah, there are options here for a multi-channel interface and stereo interface. There's the 3 modes. It's stereo interface into the PC, multi-channel into the PC, and then stereo into the iOS. The iOS thing might have shut off for me because it might have something to do with that it works over Bluetooth. That's possible. So thinking out loud, I could maybe think of something to check out next. But yeah, so that's the Zoom H8, and yes, it's a really wacky design. It's kind of cool. One other thing is, I did try the Zoom R20, and the Zoom R20 has so many flaws in the design and the workflow that I thought that you might as well just I might as well try the H8 instead, because I would get some of the similar features that I was going to get from the R20 packed into this. But it's not you don't like play music through it and be wowed like I think people use sound devices. And the Zoom F8 field recorder, you could run that in 32-bit float and really good preamps with no mics on it. But the Zoom F8 would be very interesting portable recorder setup for, I guess, a bedroom studio where you want to work on some ideas. But I mean, that's double the price of this, the Zoom F8, and the sound devices are maybe triple the price when you add them up. So this is kind of a in between zone, and yeah, I think that's it. So let me know if you've tried the H8, if you think what I'm saying is true, or if I'm talking complete babble about it. So, all right, thanks for watching this.